What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the Casual Nerd Podcast, where we discuss everything nerdy, everything tea-worthy, and today we have a special guest with us tonight. You might have recognized him by the title of this video today. You're player 2. What's going on, Josh? How are you this evening?
I'm doing excellent. I'm over caffeinated, which is great for the purposes of
Yes.
podcasting. Now, one of the things that I have to be cognizant of, though, is like I can get real fast with my delivery. So I'm trying to keep it slowed down. But man, I like Plum Red Bull. Okay, like I have to drink this stuff.
I still need to try it. I was at a convenience store today. I should have picked that up.
It's so tasty. I have a weird, sick problem that I need to overcome. Like I bought like some Diet Coke, which I think Diet Pop is probably as bad for you as energy drinks, probably. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, this is an improvement, probably, and it's cheaper than Red Bull. So we'll
No,
see
you
how
see,
it
as
goes.
long as you have it with a donut, it just balances everything
Right,
out.
exactly. Like the answer there is just to overload it with more sugar. That's the trick.
Exactly. Don't care about the aspartame. The aspartame is just a logo, kids.
Right.
Okay, it's used by the corporate consumer structure.
Right.
But guys, today on this podcast, we're really going in. We're spilling the tea, and these topics they might trigger you. I don't care. I'm just being completely
Wow, that's
honest. I really don't
brutally
care.
to the point.
Because I showed the topics to Josh, and I have to know at first glance, before saying anything, what did you think of the topics that were chosen?
I think they're really interesting. The particular topics we're talking about, I'm not going to spoil it here if you're gonna reveal that shortly. But what I will
Yes.
say is, um, I I think the topic requires a lot of context because I have mixed feelings about this. So I was like, this is going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So the first topic that we are going to be discussing is getting fame early on in the YouTube industry, market, substructure, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot of these content creators who are like 19 years old
Mhm.
getting millions of dollars, whether they're coming from TikTok or wherever it is. It's like the Logan Pauls and, a lot of them of that universe, which I don't understand. Like, I honestly, like, it's so foreign to me.
Yeah.
So whenever we're going into this, the question that I have is, do you think people or kids, I should say, should be getting fame and money that young?
I mean, I think it's a case by case basis, right? I think it depends on the kid. Like, I think you're going to have, just like any arena of life, I think you're going to have people that are more prepared for that sort of a circumstance and people that are less prepared. And the way I see it is, I almost liken it to, I'm gonna use like a sort of off topic example and then a very on topic example. And one of the things I can think of is like when you think about lottery winners, right? A lot of people who play the lottery are not people who are necessarily well versed in like, money management or wealth management. Most of us who even somebody who's well off, I'm not just talking about somebody who's like disenfranchised or from like a lower income background, but even someone who's fairly well off, if you win millions of dollars and you've never had millions of dollars at your disposal, you're probably not well equipped to handle that in as well as somebody who comes from money, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
do I think that like younger people should have that sort of success early on? I think if they can appropriately manage it, and I think if they have, I think if they have a good head on their shoulders and they can do so in like an ethical, responsible way, absolutely. If not, I'm not saying that they just inherently shouldn't have it, but I think there's an inherent risk there. I think you'd be silly to ignore. Like, cause I mean, because like there are in every walk of life, you got people who are complete morons, and you've got people who are,
Yeah.
just a little bit more responsible. I think so. I think I think it comes down to the person. But what I'll say specifically within the YouTube arena is that I think one of the biggest dangers of it is, even for somebody who might be fairly well reasoned, is even if you get that overnight success, like let's say that you happen to blow up and go viral, that doesn't necessarily guarantee ongoing success. And one of the examples I can think of is the Star Wars kid video. Everyone knows the Star Wars kid, right? Like this
Oh, yeah.
this poor dude, and he didn't even upload this video, right? This was like a mean prank done by some kid at his school who found the tape and then uploaded to YouTube without his knowledge or permission, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And what's weird is that original video has like hundreds of millions of views. It's still up, and you can see where after it got that sort of crazy viral traction, that's probably one of the top 10 viral videos of all time. You can see, like, if you look in the description or at the channel itself, like this person tried to leverage that, and they tried to like do like a music channel and try to funnel people there. but obviously it didn't work because nobody's coming to that video like, oh, I really want to engage with this creator. And they didn't build a brand around like funny videos or anything like that. They just expected, oh, I've got millions and hundreds of millions of views on this video. I must get success from it. And, that channel has, I think, like 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out the way people think. Just because you have one viral video doesn't mean that your entire, your entire life is going to be set up.
Right.
Which a lot of times, like, especially like in the case of Logan Paul, right? You see the Paul brothers and everything like that getting viral success from the time they were little kids, and even their parents. And I don't know if you saw the Shane Dawson documentary on the Logan Paul brothers, where their parents were basically their managers, and it got to the point of where, like, psychologically, that kind of thing has to be disruptive of where your parents aren't just your parents anymore. They're there to help you make money, which it's borderline going into something that really shouldn't be happening.
It's just like borderline exploitative behavior.
Exactly. And right. I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of rough on a kid who has like millions of dollars. They're buying like these McMansions. They're doing these things that like a 30-year-old, for example, should be doing.
Right.
And they're doing it at a much younger age. And I don't know. I feel like it's because like I am almost towards 30 that I have more of a respect for money, and these kids are out here like buying Ferraris at like 19 years old. I'm like, what are you doing? Go to school.
Right. Like, don't buy depreciating assets, you nut. Yeah. But yeah, no, like, and that's the thing, like, and it's weird because that's not even like a YouTube problem, right? I mean, like Macaulay Culkin, he was a child star who blew up and had, like millions of dollars, and he was a household name in the 90s. And like he has talked at least at some length about how kind of stressful it was for him with his parents, and they were also very much, they're like his manager more than anything, right? It's not that they're not being parents. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Macaulay Culkin's parents are awful people. I don't know that whole story, but what I will say is that it depends on the person, right? If you've got parents who are money hungry and they tend to be exploitative and they see dollar signs, that's not as good of a situation to be in as maybe, if you have responsible parents who realize, maybe this wouldn't be the best thing for my kid, and I need to be very careful about, how I shape my child's future.
Exactly, and it's even one of those things of where like I'm not telling, and just for to like preface this for the audience and everything like that, I'm not telling you don't spend your money in any kind of way or anything like that. I just feel like when you are a child, you have a certain, and yes, I am calling a 19-year-old a child, by the way. Whenever you have a certain framework, a certain mindset at a certain age, it's going to be so different when you get older and when your mentality matures a lot more, that I feel like you're going to have a different framework of how you spend your money when you're 19 versus when you are 29.
Oh, absolutely. Like if you're a teenager, I mean, you effectively, and I'm not saying this is a knock against young people because I was the same way. It's like, when you're a teenager, you think you like, or even your early 20s, you think you're invincible. Then you start getting into your like 30s or your 40s, and you're like, man, I need to start thinking about more practical things like, family planning or life insurance or, things like that. But if you're 19 and someone just hands you a blank check, like why wouldn't you be like, I mean, I would want to get a Ferrari. I would do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm mature enough now. I'd probably still do it. But,
just to hear that engine purr, that would feel so nice.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful car.
It's one of those things, even where like I never thought in a million years I would be concerning myself with a 401k, like learning about those. Like it's just absolutely incredible. Like, for example, I'm getting my first apartment. I'm moving this year, and I'm just like, I am not gonna lie to you guys, kind of shell shocked.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a big deal, and like, and I think that's reflective of, I mean, and that's something that in my experience that I saw growing up too, and I don't know if it would be considered just like a stereotype, but like whenever I would see, I knew kids growing up who lived really, really sheltered lives because their parents were just like super paranoid, that they would, get into trouble or they would get hurt or something like that. And they were so horrifically sheltered that by the time they got like an ounce or a taste of freedom, like of college life, like they just went bonkers, like they just went crazy. Right.
That was me.
Yeah, and that's that's a common thing. Like my parents were fairly laid back. I mean, they weren't like letting me like have parties at my house or anything like that. But like, they also were very they didn't treat me like a child. They did, but I don't know. They didn't treat me like an idiot, I guess. Where I think it's easy for a lot of parents to almost condescend to their kids and stuff like that. And I think that that's going to definitely affect how you interpret more grown-up things as you age.
So the next topic that we are going to be diving into is one that I did a thread on on Twitter. Don't know if you saw the thread. A lot of people were kind of like, oh my God, you should do the thread. And it's about numbers and YouTube and business. And I know some of the people who watch my channel don't like when I get into that stuff, but business is a necessity of life. So it's one of those things I need to dive into.
Right.
Of where I did a thread on how numbers shouldn't be a factor when collaborating with someone. And I feel like nowadays, whenever we look at the YouTube stratosphere and ecosystem, we see a business. We don't just see a place where we make videos anymore, we laugh and we have fun. We see it as that, but we see it as also something that we can make money from. And I want to get your input on how you feel about the numbers. Do you think it's something that should be considered when someone is collaborating with someone, or do you think that it's really not important?
Honestly, I don't think it's that black and white. I think it's a really big question, and that's the one that I thought needed a lot of context. And I'll lay out a few different scenarios for why I feel. Let me say this first, right up front, and then I'm going to add some context to it. If you look at another human being, online or offline, and the only thing that you see is then there's an awesome Black Mirror episode that actually brings us to a horrifying reality. If you only see a number, if you only see that somebody has some tangible amount of value that they can provide you in some pursuit for your life, and that is the only way by which you assess them, you need to do some soul searching, because people are more than numbers. However, with context, I will say that if we're specifically talking about like a David Goliath situation where you're like, okay, a large, somebody with a large amount of influence collaborating with a person of a small amount of influence, I would say this. My personal approach to this is I really don't care if you have 10 subscribers or 1 million subscribers. If you have something valuable to add to the conversation, if you have something valuable for my audience, it doesn't matter to me how many numbers you have, right? Now, that being said, I am not simply, out of some sense of altruism, obligated to collaborate with you just because you're smaller either. And in fact, in a lot of cases, that can be an incredible liability. And what I mean by that is if you are somebody who thinks from a business standpoint, and not every YouTuber does, like you think in a very business oriented way. I think in a business oriented way. But at the same time, not every YouTuber does that. Some people, they're not on the platform for business. Like some of the videos that I make about things like how to increase like affiliate revenue or stuff like that, it absolutely falls on deaf ears, because some of the people who watch my content, they're not on YouTube to make money. They're there because they like the sense of community, like they like that feeling of belonging and talking with other people. Some people are out there for artistic expression. Some people are out there because they have a very profound sense of commitment to a cause, and they use their presence to kind of spread the word about it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So if you're a larger YouTuber and a smaller YouTuber wants to collaborate, like I said, if you've got something valuable to contribute and I think it's going to be a good fit for both parties, then absolutely. But I'm not, I never feel a sense of obligation to just collaborate with somebody smaller because they say I should. And
yeah, exactly.
And that's for a few reasons. One of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head is I'm not going to betray my own audience on a gamble, because I'll have people pop up in my comments occasionally. They'll be like, hey, collaborate with me. First off, I don't even know you. I've never met you before. So, let's just slow down, because I don't want to wake up pregnant. Second of all,
it's one of those things they didn't even buy your chocolate yet.
Right. Like, and I'll tell a story. There was a guy who popped up on my channel, and he had commented on a couple of videos, and he was like, hey, I think you and I should collaborate together. It sounds like we have really similar goals. We have really similar content. And, I was like, okay, well, this guy's making sense. At least he's thinking in the direction of strategy. I'll go check out his channel. But he was like, yeah, there's a lot of overlap. I think our channels are a good fit for each other. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go check it out. Went and checked out his channel, and it was about 90% weed stuff. He had thousands of subscribers, which, is respectable depending on the value you place on a number. But I was like, he had a couple gaming videos, but it was like hundreds and hundreds of weed videos. And I was like, look, I have no issue with weed, but have you even looked at my stuff? Like, I'm not out here talking about the merits of water bongs. Like, this is not my target audience.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sweet guy, but I told him no. And then another thing that will make me not want to collaborate with somebody, whether, regardless of their number, is if you're not consistent. I've had people who I've had really great conversations with, where they're like, hey, do you have any advice? And I do my best based on what I know. Like, I don't profess to be like the ultimate expert in YouTube. I'm not. But, I had somebody who they kept getting me on phone calls, And they kept saying over and over, like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I was like, that's great. Go do it. And they're like, do you want to collaborate with me? And I was like, absolutely not. I will not collaborate with you at this point. I was like, in the future, sure. And they're like, well, why not? I was like, if I collaborate with you, it stands to reason that I'm going to probably promote you in some way. If I'm over on your channel, I'm probably going to say on Twitter or on one of my videos, like, hey, I did a collaboration with this person. You want to go check it out? And I'm not going to do my audience a disservice, one, by sending them to irrelevant content, which that wouldn't happen. I'm not going to collaborate with you if it's irrelevant. And two, even if it's relevant, if you're not putting in the work, I'm not in a million years going to tell a bunch of my followers who trust what I have to say, go subscribe to this person for a good time if you haven't put up a video in 3 months.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's just a double-edged sword in a way, because you respect them, you like them, and you understand that they're starting out, but it's also of where, like, hey, if you're not making content, then I'm not going to tell my audience to subscribe to you because there's no content for them to subscribe to.
Right. And then, like, on the flip side, like, you may be really consistent and you may have content that maybe makes sense for my audience, but we may have a completely different approach to how we do that. Like, how you conduct yourself too in the marketplace is something that I look at. If you're somebody who's constantly starting fights, if you're tearing people down, if you're toxic, generally speaking, in public forum, I'm not going to want to work with you.
Exactly.
And it's not that I think I'm a better person than you or anything, but that's not how I position my brand. That's not how I conduct myself. So it would be really weird for me, who tries to be moderately beaver cleaverish on my channel, to send somebody to like a Howard Sternian type channel. Like, there'd be a really weird disconnect.
Howard Sternian. I never heard that comparison before.
Yeah, maybe that's not the right term. I'm not saying like do I have friends who don't have family friendly channels that I send people to? Absolutely. Like my buddy Jake, and he's ramping up his streaming game this year. He's a wonderful dude, love him to death. And he's not necessarily family friendly, but I know I've spent enough time that I know he's a good dude, and I know he puts out gaming content a lot of people want. And people who don't care about family friendliness, they're not going to have an issue when they get there. But these are all factors that I would have to consider. And then also, this I will say, not everybody who wants to collaborate you is doing so in the spirit of bringing something valuable to you. I don't propose a collaboration with someone unless I know I can bring something to their audience. And I've had conversations with people where there's lots of value for me, and I can see plainly that I bring no value to them, and I've walked away from those opportunities because I don't want to be featured on someone's channel if it's not going to help their people out. I want to bring something of value. And some of the people who might approach you and say, hey, let's collaborate, if they're smaller, you're bigger, they may not care at all about your audience. What they may very much care about is thinking, how can they leverage the clout you have in the marketplace for themselves and pick up subscribers, because it's a numbers game for a lot of people.
Yep. I've seen a lot of that go down. I've even experienced that myself, of where it was just about the numbers. And the funny thing is that, to parallel what you're saying, because whenever I did the thread I did, it's like I can understand how people might think it's about numbers, because on one hand, the numbers are representative and reflective of the people that watch your community, people watching your videos, all that kind of stuff. If you have, let's I don't know, take Markiplier for example. If you're having like 20 million some people, that means that a lot of people really enjoy the content that you put out and that you deliver. And it's like, oh yeah, of course, I've seen your track record. That's why numbers are there. They're indicative of the entire community that you've built over the years. But the same could go for a channel that has like over 500 people, like I said in my thread, where
Right.
if they have great content and they have great stability within their community, they're chatting with them every single day, but they get passed up by a channel that has like over 1 million subscribers because they see that they're just a smaller creator, which it kind of saddens me in a way, but it also is like a business to a lot of these million, number creators and everything like that, which I don't know if we're ever going to get over the hurdle of caring about surface numbers less and seeing the humanity behind it and everything, but I do understand why people look at numbers first.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is I think that's another area that needs context, right? Like, okay, let's break this down to a scenario where larger YouTuber, as you put it, passes up opportunity to collaborate with a smaller YouTuber in favor of another larger YouTuber. It may literally come down to a dollars and cents situation. Like, it's easy for us to just think about YouTubers as being like, and I think to some degree all of us as YouTubers are a little self-absorbed, because we're at least arrogant enough to put ourselves on camera all the time and be like, hey, what I have to say is valuable, and expect somebody to check it out. But what if that dude is somebody who is, a family man who's providing for his wife and 4 kids, and collaborating with somebody who doesn't bring a lot of value to his channel, even though it might be a nice thing to do for them, versus, a collaboration with another, like big, like top tier YouTuber is going to bring an increase in revenue that's fivefold so he can get health insurance for a special needs kid or something like that. Like you never really know someone's full story. So, I will say this, don't be a dick. Like if you have the ability to help somebody and you're only passing because you're like, they can't help me. If you've got other commitments, and that's the other thing too, is like a lot of these people who are playing top level, they have schedules and breakneck commitments and problems that we can't even imagine right now, right? They're getting hit up by sponsors on a daily basis. They have like tax burdens they have to figure out. They have commitments. They have to make judgment calls every day. Like right now, the beauty of playing at a smaller level like we are is if I screw up here, the impact is minimal. Right. I'm having a problem with Amazon right now, and I'm gonna miss out on about $180 next month, I think.
Oh no.
Well, no, it's okay. And here's the thing: like, I'm not even really that upset about it because I learned something from it. I learned that basically a disclaimer I had in my videos was against their terms of service, where I thought I was in line with their terms of service by basically alerting people like, hey, I make some scratch when you buy stuff here, but Amazon doesn't like that. So I fixed it, and now I'm back in the game. Like, they let me create like another ID and everything, but they're not going to pay me out for like 1 month's revenue, I think. But here's the thing. It's one thing for me to lose $180. It's another thing if I had 2.8 million subscribers and I got shut down and the paycheck I miss out on is $30,000. Like,
oh god. Yeah, no, you do have a point.
I would rather make those mistakes and screw ups now than, because I mean there is a burden for being a larger personality on any web platform, right? The stakes are
Amazing
so
how
much
you
higher.
call yourself not a large personality with 7,000 subscribers.
No,
almost
like
8.
I don't consider myself a big YouTuber at all. Like, I mean, because one of the metrics that I use is not just raw subscriber count, because some of those came from a time when my channel was largely unfocused before I kind of pivoted and very very much focused in not just on video games but also like helping other gaming creators. So my numbers are slightly inflated. Um, but the other thing is I look for engagement, right? Like for me, the big value proposition, the thing that I really like, obviously I want to make money. I've never been shy about that, because I had somebody in my comments once and they're like, I like what you put out, why? 'Cause you're not all about the money. And I was like, I'm gonna stop you right there. I am all about your money. I want your money, but just because you want money doesn't mean you have to be unethical. And I think that's the point that you're making here, is like big, small, doesn't matter. If you're not willing to be an ethical person, right? If you're so enamored with the idea of money and success that it removes your ability to show humanity to somebody, I think that's a problem.
It's one of those things too of where number one, while you were talking about the fact of not being a smaller content creator, you should see my face. It's like, okay, fine, this dude playing right now, he's saying he's small creator, fine.
Well, no, like it's one of those things. Like I'm very happy with how the channel's grown. I think we're gonna hit 10,000 this year, and that's great. But it's
Congratulations.
thank you, I appreciate it. It's one of those things where kind of to your point earlier, right? Even if I hit 10,000, if I hit 100,000 this year, if I don't have a good strategy in place, so I can't really start carving out, like, what does that path look like? Who do I want to be? What's the legacy you want to leave behind? How do you build in an ethical way that's not going to make people feel isolated? If I can't answer those questions, it really doesn't matter how many numbers I have. And that's the thing that keeps me up at night.
To an extent, that's why I understand the numbers and why it's a business, because a lot of money is on the line for YouTube. If you're doing a collaboration with someone, like you said, who might be a really good guy but they're not in line with anything of what you do, then it's a really big hit for the channel.
Right. And it's so easy to demolish your own reputation, right? Like I'm very careful about the people who I'm willing to collaborate with. And it's not because I want to be a dick. It's not because I want somebody to feel like, I'm better than you or something like that. But, you have to think about your audience, right? Because they should, be, generally speaking, be number one. Like, yes, you should take care of yourself. But ultimately, as you grow, you want to make sure that you're making content that people are going to be receptive to. So I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is there are just so many factors that you have to consider, whatever level that you're playing at, that, it's not always cut and dry. I'll
right.
say that.
Now, the last thing I do want to touch on in this subject is something I thought of actually a couple minutes ago when you were mentioning about like being picky and choosy with who you collaborate with,
Mhm.
whenever I see smaller creators feeling entitled that they need to collaborate with bigger people in order to feel important.
Right. Eh,
I've seen that a lot, and the one thing, and the reason why I bring up this topic too is because I see a lot of like upcoming YouTubers who are in that stratosphere who are not just it's primarily in gaming, oddly enough, but a lot in the beauty community, a lot in the like different communities and stuff like that. They're like, hey, there's like even sending me DMs of like, why don't you like follow me and I'll follow you back, and it's like that follow for follow
ooh,
thing never
that's a bad
works.
look.
Yeah. And it's just like if you want to get follows and if you want to actually like build a community, get to know people in the community first.
Right, right, right. I one of my favorite people, and I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, but he was talking the other day, and I loved it. Or actually, I think this might have been a couple months back, but he was like talking about people's like just the sick need people have to feel validated through their social media following, and he was like, do you know what would happen if Instagram took away the verified functionality tomorrow? It's like it would shatter the egos of like 80% of the platform, and he's right. He's right.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I'm not verified, but it would still shatter my ego.
Right, right, right. I'm not. I will probably never be verified on Instagram, but like, it's just one of those things, and I think that's almost speaks to a larger danger of just the sort of social media culture that we live in, right? It's like so many people are getting validation, from the number of likes they get or the comments or just numbers. I did like a whole stream about this a few months back, talking about like the danger of the numbers, and how it's so easy to start defining your self-worth by it. And it's weird too. It's like you even see it on Facebook. Like I'm not even talking like from a business standpoint. You'll see people on
Oh,
their personal
really?
pages, and they curate their life into like this beautiful scrapbook of like their best moment. You never see their moments of like despair or sadness or where they're, really struggling with human problems. It's just, life's a party. Everything's perfect all the time. Everything's so perfectly curated.
You see, I left Facebook in 2016, so I haven't seen how much of a mess it's become in
I
the
left it. I
years.
left at the beginning of end of 2017, end of 2018. I pieced out from Facebook entirely, and unless my mom calls me and yells at me, and she's like, "Why didn't you comment on that cute picture I put up?" I'm like, "I'm sorry," and I'll log in and I'll do it for her. And then, or if I have friends who they're just like, "Are you coming to my party?" And I'm like, "I didn't know you were having one." They're like, "Why aren't you on Facebook?" And I'm like, "Because it's a cesspool of toxicity I hate, but I'll go
It
on there."
is. I saw so much drama whenever I was on there for people I knew in high school, people I knew even in college, and I'm just like, peace, guys, I'm out of here.
Yeah, and for me it was just like a matter of simple logistics. Like when because I was real bad at Twitter for a long time because I screwed up. I used Twitter as a billboard. I would go to Twitter and I would be like, everyone, look how awesome I am. And then, I would put out links to whatever I was working on, whether that was, a blog or a podcast or whatever. And I didn't realize, and I rectified this mistake later in life, but Twitter's like a cocktail party. It's not a billboard. It's a place to have conversations with people. And when I came back and started using it in the right way, like something clicked, and I was like, this place is straight up magical. Like, and I never looked back. Because on Twitter, it was much easier for me to kind of curate my following or the people who I wanted to interact with, and just find people like you who loved games. Like, they're so much easier to track down than they are on Facebook. Facebook's more like immediate friends and family. Unless you join groups, it's not quite as easy to track down people who are, nuts about 16-bit era RPGs, for example.
Yeah, oh gosh, those are amazing. But
Right.
yes, exactly.
For sure.
But the last topic that I actually want to get into is one of the ones that I'm excited about because I had, a coffee and a half today. I literally had to chug my coffee while I was in the car because I'm one of those people that brings an entire cup
Right.
because I don't have the to-go cup with me.
Right.
I chugged it, and there's still a residue of that energy left.
Oh, that's perfect.
So, so the next and last topic that we're going to be discussing is the games that are going to be coming out this year. And dude, are you so excited for the games?
I could not be more pumped, and I literally like when you said this was the topic, I like lit up on the inside. And the reason is this: I just today finished editing a video that it's going to come out Thursday called "My Most Anticipated of 2020." So this topic was so fresh in my mind that when
Oh,
you were like, "Yeah, we're going to
nice.
talk about the games we're excited for," I was like, "Perfect! I am super prepared for this."
Yeah,
And th-
and because it's really one of those things of where like there are so many good games that are actually coming out this year.
yeah.
And I remember I think it was yesterday actually. I called GameStop because I saw that there was an updated version of where they did the deluxe version of Ori and the Will of Wisps, where you get like the soundtrack, you get
Oh,
like
very cool.
the
I did not see
booklet.
that.
Yeah, it's like $49, and I'm just like I'm going to GameStop tomorrow because I need to put a
Right,
down
right,
payment
right.
on that thing
No
because they're
kid.
coming out with all these like editions and special editions, and they even came out for one for Cyberpunk 2077
Yep.
that I believe is around $200.
Oh yeah, I've got that pre-ordered. That was here's the I have a weird problem.
You see,
What?
my bank account hurts when you said that
Oh
right now.
God, it hurt because I right now I've pre-ordered the Resident Evil 3 collector's edition from GameStop, which is fairly
I was
expensive, about
too late.
$180.
I was too late to that. I mean, I'm gonna have to vicariously live through you now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to film an unboxing. But then, and then it's weird because I wasn't gonna do this, but it's like it sucks because there are like three really good collector's editions coming out. Because normally, when it comes to the super expensive collector's editions, I hate them because I'm like, normally it's overpriced crap. But then sometimes you catch a bad run of luck for me personally, and it's going to put a hurt on because I mean this year's already expensive. We're getting the PS5. Probably going to get a new Switch would be my guess, and we're going to get a new Xbox. And then on top of that, I have pre-ordered at least three collection editions in the multi-$100 range because they were like so good and they were and the first one I'll tell you is this. It's The Last of Us 2, the Ellie edition that came with the backpack and the statue. And it was like,
Oh, I saw that. That's beautiful.
yeah, it's like $220. And I got it in a complete fluke. And here's what happened. I was at work and a buddy texted me and he was like, they're announcing The Last of Us 2 collection editions and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then 5 minutes later, he hits me up. He's like, you should go to Best Buy right now. The Ellie edition's up for pre-order early. They screwed up and you can pre-order it now.
Holy shit.
And I was like, that's fantastic. So I went there because I'm like The Last of Us is one of my top 10 games, maybe even top 5. And that I didn't get the collector's edition for that one because I didn't realize what an amazing game it was going to be. Because at the time, it's like, when a new IP comes out, you never know how it's going to swing. It might be great. It might be mediocre. Ended up being one of my favorites of all time, and I've been just desperately anticipating this for about the past 7 years now.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
has.
So
and then they pushed it back. I can't imagine how you felt whenever they pushed that.
Honestly, I was grateful for my wallet because I was like, these other games are coming out. I was like, oh, thank God that they pushed this back because, oh man, it's just ridiculous. But like, so I went to Best Buy and they had it up, and I immediately, without thinking, just pre-ordered it. $250 just gone instantly, and I'm like, oh, this is such a horrible idea. But then about 2 minutes later, it was sold out and gone. And the weird thing they were so early on it that the final price wasn't even $250. It was supposed to be $220. So I got a follow-up email from Best Buy saying, hey, sorry, we're going to refund you like $30. You paid too much because we didn't know the game didn't cost that much. Yeah, so freak accident. He found like one Reddit comment that talked about it and was able to clue me into that. And I couldn't pass it up because I adore the game so much, the first one. So I'm very excited to play the second one. And I was like, I have to have the best.
See, that would be the only reason why I would get a PS5 is to play The Last of Us because I've never played it before.
Oh my God. You never played the original?
Yeah. I never played the original.
Do me a favor. When you stream that, I would like front row seats. If you could set that up for me,
I'm actually going to be recording that on YouTube because I don't know if you saw, I came back to YouTube gaming.
Oh, that's tremendous. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I made an announcement about it because I was like, in my stream, a little sidetrack note over here, it was lagging so badly because I streamed at 9 a.m. and it was like a frame per second.
Oof, that's brutal.
It was bad. It was like a potato. It was so terrible.
Right.
And people were like, "What's going on? Are we back in like 2003 or something?" I'm like, "Oh, guys, no.
Right.
And I went and I was like on the verge of tears. I'm not gonna lie to you because I want to give my people the best. I want them to be able to have like a good experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was during Tomb Raider, and I was like, no, this is not happening right now. So I made the decision to come back, and I was like, Kappa's not going to get me, and I put a disclaimer at the beginning of all of my videos, and I should probably read this because I don't want people, and it's going to be at the beginning of this one, even though it's a podcast, but I should probably like read it really quickly for people, that way they get a verbal contract to say the disclaimer, that way you guys know exactly what's going to happen, that way Kappa can't get at me or anything, is that all videos that are made on my channel are for audiences 18 years or older. I discuss morbid topics in gaming, psychology, and philosophy in gaming. Just because a game has bright colors doesn't mean that it's suitable for your 7-year-old to watch.
Fair. I think that covers all the bases.
I mean, it's one of those things of where, like, I thought, okay, I have to cover my ass some way. That way, if just by the odd swing of a chance that it happens, I can have something provable in court that can say, hey, I told people, and that's on them. You know, if they would decide to ignore the disclaimer, there's really nothing I can do about it.
Right. Yes.
One thing that I noticed about a lot of the things that are coming out by way of games, by way of just all of the hype that's surrounding it, is that the most hype I've actually seen for an older game that's coming out is Animal Crossings.
Oh, don't get me started. That
I can't.
garbage game.
I can't with that game. I
Oh,
don't know
you're the
what the
same
hype
way.
is. I don't know what the hype is around it though. I was there whenever it came out, and I heard of it, and I was just like, okay, cool. It's about these animals that look like we characters,
Right.
you know.
I it's weird because like normally like if I say that or I'll talk trash about Animal Crossing, then I get crucified on Twitter or by friends who are not very happy with me. But here's the thing I don't understand. It's like I love Stardew Valley. I love Farm Together. There are lots of like cutesy. I love Dragon Quest Builders, and I love lots of like cutesy little like sort of like community or building, like cute games like that. I actually really like them. But Animal Crossing is extremely stressful to me, and the reason it's stressful is because it's one of those games where it moves in real time. So I'll be out like having dinner with a friend or something, and then I'm thinking like, are my plants gonna die if I don't get back to Animal
Oh
Crossing soon?
no.
Stardew Valley, on the other hand, if it's winter in Stardew Valley, I can turn off the game and it's winter forever. Everything stays frozen in time exactly where I want it. Animal Crossing is just constantly nagging at the back of my head. Now I'm gonna get it in a brash move of hypocrisy. And
Are you serious? Oh, good lord, that's not gonna be
I
good.
know I'm gonna get it because I've had my friend Maru, absolute sweetheart, just wonderful lady. Uh, she she has implored me to pick up the game and give it an honest shot, and I'm gonna do it for the Switch because I periodically I think I talked trash about Animal Crossing in the video I just did today. I love talking trash about Animal Crossing. It's so,
It's one of those things. That's what I do with Dragon Ball Z, and our mutual friend Neo absolutely hates it because anytime that I talk trash about Dragon Ball Z, I always hear it from him, and I'm just like, I've tried to watch it, I've tried to
right.
enjoy it. Same with Animal Crossings. I've tried to understand the reason what the hype is about it, and I
Sure.
love that people get hype about Dragon Ball Z, about Animal Crossings. It's just one of those games that I find doesn't hold a plot line for me.
I gotcha. And I don't know, actually, so I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Huggable Hipster not excited for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot next Friday.
I'm excited for the fans who are excited about it, but that's the extent of it. I'm
That's
just
so
like, what?
delightfully diplomatic. I love it.
Yeah, I'm one of those libertarians that's just like, I'm excited for you, but for the actual thing, not as much.
Fair. Like it's weird. Normally, historically that has been my position on Dragon Ball games. Like occasionally there would be one that I like. Like I like Dragon Ball Fighters and I liked Budokai, but normally it was just the ones that are just mainly fighting based without a lot of story or narrative. And it's really because I just sort of marvel at how far we've come and being able to replicate the source material in a video game and have it look like you're watching the show.
Right,
I think that's really
exactly.
amazing on a technical level. But
Yeah.
I will say there was this brief period for about 3 or 4 years when I was moving from junior high to high school where I had a couple of friends who were nuts about Dragon Ball Z. And every day after school, we get off at the same bus stop, and their grandma lived like right on the corner from the bus stop. I lived about 2 blocks away from them. So I would go to their house, and every day after school, we would watch DBZ. And at first, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And over time, I was like, this is kind of rad. Like, yeah, it's just it's basically just like 12 commercial laden minutes of two guys like screaming and reacting for most of the episodes. But I became so familiar with that one brief part of Dragon Ball for those 4 years, and the fact that Kakarot largely follows those stories, for me it's going to be a nostalgia purchase. Like I'm going to go for it, but mainly because I'm just like, it'd be kind of fun to dive back in and remember the show I used to enjoy with my friends in high school.
The bigger question is, are you getting the one that is the Ultimate Edition, or are you getting just the regular one?
I thought about it, but I was like, man, I was like $200, and because that's the thing. Like Dragon Ball has, there's like Dragon Ball, there's Dragon Ball GT. There's more than just DBZ, and I'm not familiar with any of that. So I would feel like a real poser if I got that one. I thought about it. It does look cool, and I love the steelbook. I really do, but ultimately I don't think so. What I'm more curious about next Friday is Tokyo Mirage Sessions getting ported to the Switch.
Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that comes out next Friday, and I was immediately put off that game because I can't stand Fire Emblem. I bought Fire Emblem Three Houses, and everyone was going gaga for it, and I couldn't get into it despite my best efforts. And I gave it the old college try. And the fact that Mirage Sessions is like Mirage Sessions Sharp, I don't even know what the full name is. The only thing that's making me look in its direction is one, it's got style for days. It's got a very unique visual style and color palette that I find appealing. And two, is the combat in it is very Shin Megami Tensei, if it looks Persona-ish to me and not Fire Emblem-ish. If it were
Oh,
Fire
that's really
Emblem-ish, it
cool.
would be an instant hard pass. But the fact, because I love Persona 4 Golden, and I will say this is another game that I'm looking forward to. Well, I'll say two more real quick, and then I'll shut up because you should probably talk about some games that you want to get. But like, uh, Persona 5, the Royal, I am going to get that, and I'm getting the collector's edition because it looks really fancy, and I
I've
hate
heard about that. That's supposed to be
it
amazing.
so pretty. And then the other one is I did go for Cyberpunk, and I just want to tell you real quick. The reason I went for Cyberpunk is it is also a gamble, because it's sort of a new IP in a way. Like it's based off of like I think a tabletop game, and I think some books. Um, but it's a CD Projekt Red release, and these are the cats that did The Witcher, and they are a very consumer friendly company. And I feel like whenever they put out a game, they're like, well, we'll put it out when it's ready, and then they give you tons of free DLC for their releases, which I have a great deal of respect for CD Projekt Red. So I want to support them as a publisher and as a developer. And Keanu Reeves is in it. So if I'm gonna just
That's the only reason why I'd purchase it, honestly. I saw the way that they did that game and the way that they were releasing the hype for it over the years. Because I remember when they first started developing Cyberpunk
it's like
2077.
7 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, and it's such an in-depth. It took them such a long time to create, and I'm so proud of like the way that it's finally coming to fruition. But it's sad because it's like I already put down my deposit for Ori and the Will of Wisps and for Resident Evil 3 remake, which that's a nostalgia piece for me. Which
Oh yeah,
I'm so excited because I remember playing that when I was a little kid.
you play that with your dad, right?
Yeah, I played that with my dad, and I played Resident Evil 1 Remake, which was the first video game I ever played.
Right.
So that was all of this is just gonna be so nostalgic for me. But I also really want to get Cyberpunk 2077, and it's like $59. I'm like, oh god, my wallet's gonna be screaming by the end of it.
Yeah, it's going to be an expensive year for gaming. Like I really hope that these Switch, and my theory is that Nintendo's going to have to release a beefed up Switch because they need third party support. Like they've got great first party IPs. No one's ever going to argue that about Nintendo, but I don't think the Switch would have pushed as many units or would have done as well without really strong third party support this year, or this generation, I should say. And if developers start using this ridiculous 9 and 12 teraflop hardware for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox respectively, then the gap between the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation Xbox gets so much larger that I feel like it would be a struggle for developers to want to port games down to the Switch. So I feel like they have to provide a beefier version of it to keep third party support strong.
Exactly, and not only that, I kind of feel like they're going to do the same for the Switch Lite because I'm very tempted. I'm very, very tempted to get the Switch Lite at the end of this year for the holidays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I've never owned a Switch before, and I saw that they came out with Luigi's Mansion 3, and Luigi is one of my favorite games. So I need to get that because I mean, also for me personally, kind of selfishly, not gonna lie, I really want to get that as like a housewarming apartment present for myself.
That's fine. Treat yourself. There's nothing wrong with being a little selfish, especially if we get you a Switch, because here's how you spin it. Here is how you Joshify that. A term that I use that my roommate very quickly pointed out in the few years we lived together. He was like, when you buy stuff, he's like, I call it Joshification. Like, you can talk yourself into anything. I was like, he's absolutely right. But here's how I would spin it. Okay? You got to think, it's not a selfish purchase, right? This is a very altruistic purchase, hipster, because now you can cover an entirely new platform for your viewers. You don't want to betray them, do you? You don't want to let them down.
It won't be streamed though, because I don't think I'd be able to do the connect. Wait, could I do the connection through my computer to stream?
Not from a Switch Lite. Not from a Switch Lite. You would need a docked Switch, but I mean,
okay.
But that's the thing. You don't have to stream it to make content, right?
Exactly.
You could do
I could probably do an article review.
You could do an article review, and right now, I mean, you're kind of doing your whole audience a disservice if you don't treat yourself to a Switch, hipster. I don't know if I could live with myself. It's like you have. It's a moral imperative.
Damn you, Josh. Okay.
I'm a horrible.
It's one of those things of where like I am such a price conscious person. Whenever I think of it, I think okay, the Switch Lite is $199 plus the game $49, which in all of its glory, if you think about it, not that bad of a price.
No, it's fairly reasonable. I mean, it's a pretty reasonable price. Now I still think the best value in gaming right now is to get a pre-owned Xbox One and then to give yourself Game Pass. I think that's the best deal in console gaming right now.
Honestly, yeah. And the thing is that like I know for a fact I'm going to be getting the Xbox Xbox S, whatever they're
Ooh,
calling
the
it. I think
Xbox
it's just
Series X, the Xbox
yeah.
X.
The Xbox, what I think one of my friends called it the Xbox Sex because
Yeah.
he's just like, I'm not going to call it the Xbox Series X. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it sounds weird.
I mean, like, I think they're trying to go for more of a minimalistic tone, you
I
know?
I think they're trying to position the brand sort of like the iPhone, where it's like every Xbox from here on out is just gonna be an Xbox, but they're just gonna like give it a slightly tweaked name, but they're just trying to make it feel more like, instead of like these distinct boxy things that go under your machine. Because and that's smart on their part, because if Project X Cloud really takes off, if the infrastructure gets in place to support it in any sort of widespread way, Xbox is going to be in a pretty good position, because I would love to see them bring Game Pass to the Nintendo Switch and instantly see just like what like there what 20 or 30 million Switches out there,
Oh,
or
yeah.
100, 200, I can't remember. There's a lot. There's many millions.
There's many million.
And for all those to like instantly activate as Xbox machines would be just insane. But I would love it so much if I could just play Game Pass on my Nintendo Switch.
That would also be a conversation piece. I mean, people will walk into your house and just be like, "What is that?
Yeah,
That is beautiful."
I know it. And man, that Xbox Series, that thing it's like an obelisk. I like how chunky it is. Like that's a big
Yeah,
boy.
me too. Me too. I'm like one of those people that's just like, I want it out there, standing tall, loud, and proud. I don't want it hidden away where you can barely see it.
Hmm.
But to get on to actually, there was another topic that I thought of would be a perfect way
Wait.
What?
What games were you excited about? Were there more beyond
Oh,
that?
oh yeah, there was actually. Thank you
Yes,
for
I did,
reminding me.
because I really want to know. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stop you right there. What's hipster
Actually,
fun for?
so I'm pumped about something that might come out in the future.
Okay.
I'm making a prediction about this because I was thinking about it a lot yesterday when I was writing my Little Nightmares DLC, which actually,
Oh,
speaking
cool.
of Little Nightmares, that game is coming out as a second game, which I'm really stoked about.
Cool.
Little Nightmares 2 is supposed to be so good, and I'm really excited for that. I'm making a prediction that at some point down the road, maybe 2023, they're going to remake the very first Resident Evil game in the new engine.
Again?
I think they're going to do it the way that they did Resident Evil 2, the way that they are doing currently Resident Evil 3 in that engine with that realistic look. I think they're going to do that with the very first game.
Now, my question to you is: would you? Let's assume that your prediction's correct. Let's say that we're gonna get Resident Evil HD remake. If that happens, would you prefer it in the third person over the shoulder type view, or would you prefer to have it first person a la Resident Evil 7?
I think I would prefer third person.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because I think that's the way that they did Resident Evil 2, I believe. Resident Evil
Yep.
3 is going to be the same way.
Correct.
And I think they're trying to keep it in the same tonality, if you will. So if they're going to do it that way and then have a DLC where it was like Chris Redfield, where that was first person entirely, then that's something else entirely. But I think that they might do that as a remake and have what was it? The next one that they do as a remake, Resident Evil 0.
Oh, that would be cool. So, like, actually, you know what? I agree with that. Like, part of me would like to see a first-person Resident Evil 1 just to kind of see the mansion in a new way, instead of like those fixed camera angles and everything. Well, I mean, no, because if it's over the shoulder, they're not going to do the fixed camera angles. I guess what I'm saying is, I would like to see it in a different perspective. But at the same time, I think you're right. I think it would be very cool if tonally they just redid like all the old classic Resident Evils, like 1, 2, 3, to a lesser extent 0, Code Veronica, which I actually really liked. In that
I just got Code Veronica.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And then if they did like whatever comes canonically after 7, like if they just go to like Resident Evil 8 and beyond, and that's where they tinker with things like, oh, let's try a first person perspective, because that's kind of what they did with Resident Evil 4, right? Resident Evil 4 was like this really awesome sort of breath of fresh air, like a refresh for the series that sort of brought it back to baseline in a big way.
Exactly.
So that would be cool. I would be okay with that.
I would be okay with them completely redoing Resident Evil 4 as well. I mean, they
yeah.
brought it to the Xbox, and I'm really happy about that, but I feel like it kind of needs an overhaul as far as graphics go, because even though it was a breath of fresh air, I feel like with a lot of the monsters and with a lot of like the transporting through the map that Leon does at certain points, I feel like it would be nice to redo that.
Right.
Yeah, but the other thing that I'm actually really, really excited about is the second Hellblade game, and I haven't played the first yet.
Ooh, so you and I we should compare notes on that then, because I started it, but only about like 20 minutes in. So I'm also pumped for Hellblade 2. I haven't finished the first one yet, but maybe you and I can make a commitment to finish it independently, or maybe we could race,
Yeah.
and then we
I'm,
can compare notes. That would be fun.
I see. I'm a competitive person, so I might actually win.
You probably would. Like I say that, like let's race, but I know tomorrow would be like, oh man, I'm just gonna play some more Sea of Thieves right now. Like,
You see, that's me with the Overwatch. I just put down Resident Evil, and I'm just like, I'm gonna play some Overwatch for like 5 hours.
right.
It's one of those things of where like I am so excited to play Sona's Sacrifice because, or maybe it's Suna's Sacrifice. Someone correct me down in the comments below. But I'm really excited to play that because someone told me there's a lot of psych in it, and I'm like,
Oh yeah,
psychology is my thing.
For sure.
I can't wait to see it because a lot of the monsters I feel are kind of a representation of her mind and what she's manifesting. So it's really interesting to see how a lot of people perceive the game and how they're like, oh, it's just monsters, and they take it for face value. I'm like, no, honey.
Right.
I was like, look deeper.
Right.
So, as some final thoughts before we finish up this podcast, I want to know some predictions for this year's E3. So, what do you think, Josh? I want to know your predictions first of what you think are going to be the games that are going to be announced at E3 this year.
Games that will be announced at E3 this year. Man, that's really big. I haven't given a whole lot of thought to like raw E3 predictions. I think I'm gonna go again this year because this feels like a good year to go. And I went last year and I had an amazing time. And it's weird because
I'm really tempted to go this year though.
Yeah, like if you go, well, we'll hang out. It'll be great. But like it was weird because I had been fairly critical of E3, like developers should spend their time working on the games, not making these weird media showcases and appeasing this dumb E3 thing. And then I went out there and it really is like the mecca of video. I went out there, I was like, oh my god, it's amazing. It's like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, it's filled with magical spectacle. I retracted everything. I mean, I was like, you just need to go to E3. It's beautiful. My predictions would be, I think that is probably where we'll get the Switch Pro announced. Because I think Nintendo is going to want to undercut Microsoft and Sony in the marketplace when the holiday season for 2020 ramps up. And it's going to take them some time. If they're going to put that system into production, then it's going to take them a few months to spin up enough of those units that they're going to be ready to have a considerable launch, if they're going to do it. Like, I know that's still a really speculative thing to say that a Switch Pro is going to come. I think they have to do it. I could be wrong, but I guess we'll the marketplace will tell the tale. As far as games that I would expect, I think E3 is where we'll probably finally get a firm release date for Metroid Prime 4. I think that I think what might happen, we might get a surprise announcement of the Metroid Prime trilogy leading up to E3, because they're going to want to build some hype for Metroid again if they're going to launch Metroid Prime 4. And what better way to do that than to let people dive back into the nostalgia of the original trilogy, play it on their Nintendo Switch, then find out, oh, guess what? The story continues this Christmas season. Pick up the Switch Pro Metroid Prime 4 bundle. As far as the other big players, I think Microsoft will make a full widespread announcement surrounding xCloud. I think they may they'll either expand the functionality and selection of Game Pass, or they'll reduce the price to make it even more enticing whenever they're going up against Sony when they launch the PS5 this year.
I mean, it makes sense though, honestly, and we don't even know if Sony's going to be there this year.
Right. I'll make this final prediction from a third party. I think Konami is going to bring back Castlevania and or Silent Hill in a significant way at this E3.
Excuse my French, but you got fucking balls saying that.
I know, but here's the thing though. Like, let's take a step back. I understand that there's, and I say this as somebody who has almost zero faith in Konami, but I find it very odd that Konami continues to push this Netflix animated series right now. I find it very odd that Konami would release this classic collection, this classic Castlevania collection, and I believe it was 2 parts too.
Yeah, it was High Silent Hill 2 and 3.
Yeah, if they really wanted to lay low and really just throw all of their dollars into the pachinko machine bucket and just focus on mobile revenue, because pound for pound it's got much higher return on investment than a conventional AAA console release. They could do that, but I don't understand the point of stoking the marketplace with some of their biggest properties, well, at least for Castlevania, if they're not going to follow through. And I know they had to have been paying attention when they saw how well Bloodstained did. I mean, Bloodstained, it's not a Mario, it's not a Zelda, but there's clearly a demand for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that does have some validity to it because of how people reacted to it. So it could go either way, but it's like Silent Hill. In Konami's mind, I feel like it's kind of dead to him to an extent
Yeah.
because the name is now you can purchase Silent Hill for $10,000 a domain name.
What, SilentHill.com?
Yeah,
Oh, that's gross. I'm going there right
yeah.
now. Hold on.
Just be like, bam, 10K down. What are
Oh
you gonna do
God.
about it, Konami?
That's just that makes me sad.
Yeah, it really. I mean, I reported on T Talk, and I was just like, this is pitiful.
Ugh.
Yeah. So my predictions for E3
Yes, let's hear
of
it.
this year are I'm gonna play it safe because I did this last year,
Yeah,
and I was
okay.
right about a new Gears of War game. I feel like there's going to be either a new DLC, expansion pack, something is going to happen with Gears of War this year. Either they're going to be creating a new game, or something is gonna go on with a multiplayer.
Oh yeah, I could see
That's going
that.
to happen. Yeah. Another thing that I'm going to say is that they're going to be announcing something with Ghostwire Tokyo with Shinji Konami because they just released a trailer
It's
this
Ghostwire
past
Tokyo.
year.
I have no idea what that is. I don't think. Hold on.
Yeah, Shinji Mikami, I believe the creator of Resident Evil series, is coming out with a new game called Ghostwire Tokyo.
I knew nothing about that. I'm looking at a trailer right now from E3 from 2019.
Yeah.
I totally missed this.
Oh yeah, no, it's absolutely wonderful, and the fact that like whenever he came out onto the stage, I fangirled. I was watching that and I fangirled.
Oh my God! Like in the middle, this looks like Hawkeye from that looks like that could have been ripped straight out of Avengers Endgame when they track Hawkeye down in Tokyo. Like, dude's got
I
a
haven't
bow.
spoilers.
So, you haven't seen Endgame?
I don't like Marvel.
Well, then it's not spoilers if you don't like Marvel. You don't care. That'd be like you spoiling Animal Crossing for me. I wouldn't care. Go nuts, hipster.
Let's see. Another prediction I have. It's along the lines of Silent Hill, where I'm going to be ballsy. I'm going to say that they are going to be going again and doing something along the lines of what they did of PT, but different.
You mean like a new IP
Yeah,
from Konami?
yeah.
Ooh.
I feel like they might do something. I don't know why. I just have a good feeling that something from Konami is going to come out horror related, but it will probably either have nothing to do with Silent Hill or something very minute to do with Silent Hill. And they're just going to be like, I don't know, they might recreate something. They might expand PT of what it was before since they already had Norman Reedus in Death Stranding. They might do something completely new. I just have a good feeling about that.
I mean, if they do it well, more power to them. I would love to see it. Man, like, and that kills me, hipster. Like in the 90s, and even the early 2000s, Konami was a name that was synonymous with quality for me. Like I grew up, and if you saw the old school Konami logo flash across the screen, you knew you were in for a good time. And they have fallen from grace so much. Like that's got to be one of my saddest tales in recent memory for video game culture is just the fall of Konami and how they used to be just such a revered publisher that made just put so many good things out, and then they just completely abandoned their biggest fans, and that sucks.
And it's not just that; it's the fact that like one of the people who actually played PT Silent Hills escaped from the house of Silent Hill, and they were able to walk around the map.
I saw
It's
that.
such a waste.
Yeah.
It was such an excuse my French. It's such a fucking waste what they did. Like
Yeah.
the potential that was there to create something absolutely stunning for people to play. That's just something
Right.
that's gonna be long gone, and like the bones and remnants of it on the PS4 only for those who have owned it.
Oh yeah, and like I'll never forget watching that initial trailer. I remember beating PT. I still have PT on my PS4, and I love that. But I'll never forget. It took about well, I think under a week for the internet to collectively crack it and find a way to escape and beat it. And whenever I saw that reveal of Norman Reedus, and the fact that when I saw that Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro and Reedus together, like that was such an incredible trilogy. Like I remember like hearing about it and reading it and seeing it and processing it and being like, this feels too good to be true. And lo, it was.
It's just like if it is too good to be true, it normally is.
Right. That was
The
heartbreaking.
other Yeah, it really was. And I didn't even own a PS4, and I collectively just went into sorrow with a lot of the gamers. And I was just like, I can't stand PS4 and what they're doing right now because they have the publishing rights, they have everything. They could say, hey, we think this might be a good idea, but ultimately the publisher has the say on, like, no, we want this off of the entire PS4.
Right, right, right.
So, but my other prediction that I have is that some game, and I don't know what it's going to be. I feel like we're going to get a sequel to some game that's going to be coming out. Another trailer, quite possibly, for Hellblade 2. I'm guessing
Right.
because that's a safe bet. I feel like they're what was it? I just had the thought in my head. We're going to get something for Overwatch. Even though that might not be at that conference, it might be at another conference at some point later on because the Xbox conference is something completely on its own.
Right.
We're going to definitely get something for Fallout. I know that for a fact.
Oh my god, I don't.
Something for Fallout.
And I wasn't gonna say it, but now you forced my hand, hipster. Your precious Ghostwire Tokyo is a Bethesda game. Just so we're clear.
It is. It is.
I watched. I was like, this looks really dope. And then at the very end, lower right hand corner, I was like, skeptical. Here's the thing. Like, I almost feel like it would be a mistake to make anything Fallout for at least a few years. Like, as I feel like they're just gonna get throttled in the press. Like, people are just going to slam on that game before it even has a chance to get off the ground. Like, they've garnered so much ill will with the Fallout brand right now. I mean, if they turn it around, awesome. I would love that because I had Fallout 3 and 4 kind of started bringing me into the fold for that series. But man, Fallout 76 was botched on so many hilarious, like, circus-like levels that I just couldn't. It sucks so much.
It's one of those things of where, like, I didn't even play the games at the time of seeing it. I've only seen walkthroughs, and I was like, this is not living up to people's expectations at all. I mean, like, it's Bethesda. We know that they make good content, but in a way that the way that Fallout 76 went, I was like, you have years of experience,
right,
and this happened. How did this manage to happen?
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing is like for years and years, even with Skyrim when it came out, which got tons of critical acclaim. Bethesda's always been this weirdly unique case where they will release software and games that are incredibly buggy, and we sort of give them a pass because we're like, well, it was really ambitious, so that's okay. And I feel like they just exhausted the goodwill bank with Fallout 76, where now it's not okay to release these shoddy, half-baked products to the marketplace. There's no redemption story for Fallout 76. Like, No Man's Sky got a redemption arc, right? Yeah, this tiny developer who was like, we're committed to listen to player feedback and making a good experience. And then to a lesser degree, Sea of Thieves launched as kind of ironically like this skeleton of a game, and then over time it got really good. Like, as soon as we're off here, I'm going to play Sea of Thieves. I'm having a blast with it. But Fallout 76, I'm telling you now, is not going to get that redemption arc, and it's especially not going to get it when they're doing like, hey guys, Fallout first, pay us $15 a month. Like, get out of here.
It's like, no, that's just ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah.
And also, I have two more predictions,
Sure.
which might be a stretch, a really big stretch actually. But I feel like Sega and Xbox are going to team up and do something new with Alien Isolation as a sequel.
Oh, that would be cool. I'd be okay with that.
Because I love the first game. Alien Isolation was so close in resemblance to the movie that I was very happy with it.
Oh, yeah. They perfectly kept that chunky analog aesthetic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the way that, you had to go about doing everything, it was kind of like a first-person version of Resident Evil, in a way.
Right.
Yeah. And the last prediction that I have, which also, again, a stretch, something new of Tomb Raider is going to come out.
I don't think that's too much of a stretch. They're going to beat that horse to death.
Honestly, because and I'm not just saying that because I am playing through Shadow of Tomb Raider right now, but I feel like there's still a lot more to the story that they do have a little more wiggle room with things that they can possibly cover.
Yeah, I have no doubt they're going to do another Tomb Raider. I think Nintendo's going to do a direct in January. I think they're going to go ahead and say, I think we're also going to get that. This won't be an E3 thing. I think this is going to be a first part of the year thing because I think We're definitely gonna get, I think, Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker on the Switch, because they already made Wii U versions of those games. I have to imagine that comparatively it would not take a ton of development work as much as like creating a new IP or making like a Breath of the Wild from the ground up to get that to the marketplace. If people are gonna buy it, like I'll buy them. I don't even like Twilight Princess, and I'll buy it.
You see, I'd buy Wind Waker because that was the first Zelda game I ever played on the GameCube.
Oh, and I feel like I'm 100. It hurts. I'm taking damage.
You see, I remember when I got that game. I think I was like, what, maybe
So,
10 or 11?
stop. It hurts. I wouldn't do this to you on my channel.
Actually, I think it kind of would.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe just a little bit.
Because you're like, my first game was Resident Evil, and I'm like, my first game was on DOS.
Oh, I remember that. My dad showed me that.
Oh, man. But that's the thing, like even like by someone else's standards, like I'm a baby. Like there are people who would scoff at that, be like, Psh, my first game was an arcade machine or Pong or whatever it is.
Yeah. You see, the first 3 games I ever owned in my entire life: Resident Evil, Zelda and the Wind Waker, and Scooby Doo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because I remember absolutely loving Wind Waker. It was such a kind of seamless flow that it had about it. Like, the controls weren't clunky. They were absolutely wonderful to work with on the GameCube. Because I remember, and just like, this isn't like a pity hipster moment, but I remember being really sick as a kid, and the one thing that would just distract me from all of it was playing Zelda or playing Resident Evil. Right. And I remember when I was younger, I think about like, 12 or 13 at this point. Yeah. 13 years old, I started high school. I remember going in a year early because they were like, you just need help with your math because you're not so good at it. Right. But everything else you're doing fine in. And I remember just like the kids were just like, kids are nasty. Kids are nasty MFs. So I remember going home playing video games and my mom would be like, how was your day at school? And I'm just like in my room sitting down just focusing on the game. And I'm just like, oh, it was school.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, high school was interesting because New Jersey high schools, I can't even tell you guys how crazy those are at times. Like teachers getting laid off. I remember, funny story, one time I remember seeing my English teacher making out with the janitor in the closet. Scandal right there.
Now that's some tea.
Oh, the tea has been sold. I feel like that's a good way to end today's podcast. Always gotta watch out for the English teachers and janitors. Am I right, kids?
Absolutely.
But Josh, it was an absolute pleasure having you on today's podcast. Guys, be sure to check out his channel. All of his links will be down in the description below so y'all can check him out. And be sure to tell us your E3 prediction. Are you guys excited for the upcoming games and what you're most excited about? So, yeah. I will leave you guys off. Josh, do you have any last words that you would like to say to the audience?
No, just thank you so much for having me. It's been fun. I always like being over here. It's a good time, good conversation. And I learned some new things today about a game that is coming out from Bethesda, but I'm not going to hold it against you. So just thank you so much for having me. It's a great time.
Well, we'll just have to see whenever it comes out if it lives up to its expectations, considering the fact that, like, since Shinji Mikami is working on it, it might be actually pretty good.
Right.
Yeah. But you guys, if you all like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below because I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. EST. And be sure to stay casually nerdy, and we'll see you all in the next video.